Hi, we've got another look at business news. Catherine Nicholson has joined us on set. Catherine, you have teased us, tantalized us this hour with stories on the latest sales figures for Peugeot Citroën.
Yeah, they have just come out in the last half an hour or so, and it's not particularly happy reading for Peugeot Citroën, also known as PSA. Worldwide sales of assembled vehicles fell by 8.8% last year. So obviously that's not very good for them, but it is an uneven picture around the world. A higher proportion of those total sales were outside of Europe. We know that car sales in Europe haven't been doing very well, so unsurprising there. And there are some good points. Peugeot Citroën is once again the European leader in low-carbon vehicles. And they say the launch of the Peugeot 208 was successful, and this all comes against a backdrop, of course, of almost crisis, really. Peugeot Citroën closing an assembly plant just outside Paris, cutting 10,000 jobs here in France, and looking to shift some of its debts. It's got over €1 billion of debt on its books. So, we'll have to see how that's taken. In fact, I can tell you on the markets, which we're going to look at next, Peugeot Citroën's share price did fall 2.7% as the markets opened at the top of this hour. But other than that, across the board, it's a positive opening here in Europe. Investors have been quite buoyed up by the positive start to the earnings season in the United States. Over in Asia, it's been more of a mixed picture, but in Hong Kong, the Hang Seng has bounced back from its lowest dip in a week.
And here on the economic front, here in Europe, there's a new unemployment record, unfortunately. Is that the Eurozone or the European Union? Well,
we've been looking at the figures for both, but across the European Union, more than 26 million people are now out of work, and we've been getting some reaction to that figure overnight and this morning. This rate has gone up to 11.8% in November from 10.6% just 1 year before that, so you can see how it's mounted. There are fears, really, that a north-south divide is developing in Europe. We've got southern countries, Greece, which we know has been in crisis. Exactly. Greece has had the biggest increase in its unemployment figures. It's at just over 26%. Spain has the highest unemployment in Europe at 26.6%. That's climbed again. And like you said, we know their money problems very well by now. But what we don't talk about so much is the countries further north in Europe. Austria, 4.5%, Luxembourg, 5.1%, Germany, 5.4%. So the people worrying that these social divides could really start to open up.
And those unemployment numbers are up for those countries? They're still fairly low, I mean, especially compared to Spain.
It depends on different countries, but I mean, even Germany, it's not like the economy is sort of a bright beacon of positivity, but obviously it's got the third lowest unemployment in Europe there. So yeah, we've had the Employment Commissioner, Laszlo Andor. He's warning that poverty and social exclusion are constantly growing risks, and what's more, he says it's unlikely that Europe will see much improvement in 2013.
After a few years of persistent crisis, most national welfare systems have lost much of their ability to protect household incomes against the effects of the crisis. Trade is pointed out, retail trade, as one of the sectors that have lost the highest number of jobs.
And Catherine, you told me earlier that Spain had been writing its New Year's financial resolutions. What's happening with that?
Yes, well, we're all pledging to lose weight and do more sports and things like this. Spain is promising to borrow less money this year, which is very sensible because in 2012, Spain borrowed just under 250 billion euros. It's hoping to bring that down to a maximum of 230 billion euros this year. And why it's so confident that it can do this? Well, investors are more confident in Spain's ability to pay back money that they lent to Spain. We can see that the current 10-year government bond yield for Spanish debt is down to just over 5%. It peaked at over 7.5% in July last year. So Spain feeling positive.
You know, one thing you were reporting on earlier today that really surprised me, considering Spain's financial difficulties, is that Madrid is actually bidding to be the host to the 2020 Olympic Games.
Yes, it's officially presented its candidacy now. And this is a city that has seen its own financial problems among Spain's financial problems. But the city of Madrid says that this could, in fact, be a good thing for Madrid to invest in. They're saying that it will cost them a lot less money than, say, the London Games. They already have transport infrastructure and things that wouldn't need much development, but the developments that they would need to make would help them to bring back jobs. Rochelle Ferguson with more.
Madrid's mayor Ana Botella is convinced her capital needs and deserves the Olympic Games in 2020. Alongside other officials, she presented a 370-page bid document insisting Madrid's capable of being the perfect host.
Spain deserves these games and we need them. We need these games. We have 8 months to continue adding support for this extraordinary project, and I invite you to come together for the chance to make a dream come true after many years of work.
Spain's Minister for Culture and Sport supported Botella, underlining that the €1.7 billion project was fully in line with austerity measures.
With austerity as a standard and a guide, and while respecting our commitments, I have no doubt that the economic effect of celebrating the Olympic Games in Madrid will be positive.
Many argue Madrid's transport system is already up to the task if thousands do descend for the 2020 Games. Construction projects off the back of the Olympics could also create jobs, but some are still concerned that the city financially is simply not up to the job. In 2012, Madrid's government declared it needed to refinance €1.3 billion for the second half of the year and was under pressure to convince investors to buy its debt. Failure to do so would have meant they were dependent on a special €18 billion fund set up by central government for cash-strapped regions. Spain's unemployment increased to 25% in 2012. The Olympic Committee will need to convince the average Spaniard to get behind the project.
Catherine, back here in France, the budget minister is facing an investigation over claims that he evaded taxes for several years.
Yes, these are claims that were brought up by the French news website Mediapart, known for their investigations. They brought up this story back in December, in fact, saying they had various pieces of evidence that Jérôme Cahuzac had had a Swiss bank account for several years to evade taxes. He strenuously denies this. He is suing them for defamation, but the latest news is that prosecutors have opened a preliminary investigation into these claims, which I must repeat, Jérôme Cahuzac is rejecting.
Now, this story from the United States has shocked a lot of people. A company that was saved by the government at the peak of the financial crisis might now sue the government over the bailout.
Yep, AIG received the biggest Wall Street bailout of them all, $182 billion from the US government. It took over 80% of that company. Now, the AIG board is going to consider a lawsuit being brought by an investment arm linked to the company. This investment firm saying that shareholders were actually shortchanged by the bailout and that it was against the Constitution. So, as you say, a lot of shock over this story. Your face says it all, I think.
Yeah. Okay. Well, you'll continue to follow this. We'll be interested to see how it develops.
If they
Catherine Nicholson with Business News. Thank you very much. More world news coming up with Stuart Norville. Bye-bye.